And Abby Lowell is the lawyer for Hunter Biden. He's come out and attacked the whistleblower. He's come out and said these two are hacks, basically, that they've got some sort of an agenda. And he suggested that Shapley, who's like the main guy who was running herd on this investigation, that he says he and or the other as yet unnamed whistleblower who spoke to Congress may have been pushing false articles about Hunter for a long, long time. He says there was an October 6th, 2022 Washington Post article that revealed prosecutors had, quote, sufficient evidence to charge Hunter. And Abby Lowell, Hunter's lawyer, is basically saying, how would they know that unless you spoke to the press? You've been trying to get the press to turn on Hunter for a long time. You have some sort of an agenda. You're probably partisans. And meanwhile, we have absolutely zero reason to believe that they're partisans. In fact, the reports I've seen suggest they're both Democrats. So if they're partisan in any one way, it would be in Hunter's favor. And he points to this article in the Washington Post. Well, now Shapley comes out and pushes back against Abby Lowell and says in an extraordinary moment on July 5th, in an affidavit, which means a sworn testimony, written testimony to the House Ways and Means Committee, that he unequivocally swore he was not the source for that Washington Post article. I mean, this is not what you do when you're lying. When you really are the source, you just say, I'm not the source, and you move on. This guy swore to it in testimony that could get him indicted if it's false, and went on to say, I have never had any contact with the two reporters on that piece, stated under oath that I have never leaked confidential taxpayer information, which is what he was accused of doing by Hunter's lawyer, and then expressly authorized the Washington Post and its journalists, any Washington Post journalist, to release any communications directly or indirectly with me, agreeing to waive any purported journalistic privilege. And then they also went to the Washington Post and asked them to correct these allegations and to make clear that he was not the source. So this guy has gone above and beyond to try to dispute, to push back on this nonsense allegation by Abby Lowell, Hunter's lawyer, that they've got an axe to grind and have been releasing confidential information about Hunter for a long, long time. I mean, I think it's a pretty clear case of Abby Lowell trying to throw whatever he can to discredit these two whistleblowers.
Yes. And what malpractice from the media to platform it. First of all, the media has been the biggest cheerleaders for illegal leaks over the last couple of years. Remember the IRS leaking Donald Trump's tax returns in October of 2020, right before the presidential election? Or how about the leaking of a private phone call that led to Donald Trump's impeachment with Eric Ciamarella, who said, oh, I don't like this phone call. It led to the first impeachment of Donald Trump. So we don't know who actually leaked this information, but it's awfully rich to have the media platform these allegations from the lawyer of Hunter Biden saying, oh, they're illegally leaking information. Oh, I thought that's all you do in Washington, D.C. is leak information against people you don't like. Adam Schiff, I mean, the guy, every other briefing that Adam Schiff was involved in, he would get in an Uber and go to MSNBC and just make stuff up and just say, well, you know, we have credible evidence that will be coming soon that Donald Trump colluded with the Kremlin. So we don't know where this information, originated from. But if it did leak from Gary Shapley, okay, that's the way Washington, D.C. works. But it seems as if he is denying it rather forcefully. But I want to focus on something that is around the story, because oftentimes you hear in Washington, D.C. that the cover-up is worse than the crime. And they say, oh, you know, if they only wouldn't cover it up, then it would be fine. This is the opposite in this case. The crime is way worse than the cover-up. In fact, it's very clear that there's a calculated effort that is underway that they have to cover this up. And even if they get caught covering it up, it's worth it, because the crime is going to lead to something that is far more serious than obstruction of justice or trying to put Merrick Garland to try to slow down an investigation. And Gary Shapley's interview that he's done several interviews. He did one with Brett Baer that I thought was really powerful. He said, we were told to avoid specific protocols and procedures that we as IRS agents always take that would have led us to far more serious crimes. And so the question is here, why and who is orchestrating? Who is the grand conductor, if you will, of this cover-up? Is it just happening out of ex nihilo, out of nowhere? Or is there somebody that is saying, no, do this and don't do that? And it's very obvious. the big guy, Joe Biden, is awfully nervous that the more you look into Hunter Biden, it becomes clear that Hunter Biden was operating as a proxy for the Biden family, paying for bills, not declaring income, and selling out United States policy and access to enrich their family. And so we're going to hopefully get some sort of an idea soon of, was Merrick Garland taking orders directly from Joe Biden and then via the Department of Treasury, which would be Janet Yellen, who oversees the IRS technically, to try to either slow walk this investigation or get a sweetheart plea deal. But the crime here, what we're talking about, the crime here is prostituting yourself and United States policy for cash. And there is a word that we use for that. It's called treason. It's going to be very hard to prove that, but it's certainly all signs, indications are pointing. And it's just a very simple question. For what service was rendered for $40 million that the Biden family was able to get over a decade?
That number comes from James Comer directly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a big question, because Hunter Biden had zero expertise in gas and yet was paid $50,000 a month by Burisma in Ukraine and, was getting all this money from the Chinese. For what? For what? Let's get specific. I'd love to know. And thank God that the Republicans won the House and they have an investigation underway, because at every turn we find out there's been a stymieing, a stifling by these career civil servants who have loyalty, apparently not to the truth, in too many instances. I don't want to malign the ones accused by Luft. I don't know. But in too many instances over the past 6 years, we've seen a fealty to politics and not to justice and it being blind. In a startling description, the UN food chief warned the world with these words, knocking on famine's door. He called what we're facing a perfect storm of a perfect storm. And he's not alone. A Barron's report says a food shortage could be coming even in the U.S. Farmers see it too. John Boyd Jr., a fourth-generation farmer, recently said, we're going to see empty food shelves in the coming months. That's why getting survival food may be more important than ever. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. It's not just any ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years, super survival food. Handpacked in a family-owned facility in the USA and giving jobs to over 200 Americans. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Add a little boiling water, simmer, serve. And right now, for the next few days, viewers are going to get 10% off their first order at 4patriots.com. That's the numeral 4, patriots.com, just by using the code MK. Go to 4patriots.com, use the code MK to start your stockpile today. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.